Hello and welcome to the Summer of Love. I'm Mia Saenz and I'm your host in this series. And with me today, we have Gina Daniels. Now, I met this woman this year and have fallen in love with her. I think she's amazing in her work. And so I wanted to share her with you in this beautiful series. So welcome, Gina.
Thank you so much, Mia. I feel the same. You are amazing yourself, and I'm just so honored that you have me on your show today.
Thank you. Well, doesn't everything really break down to the basics of self-love, right? Who we are, what we want to express. And I just realized I forgot my note and paper. So I take notes while we're talking. So that's
Ah,
okay. So wonderful. Let's get started with the most important story in your life. And that is, well, one of them is, how did you discover self-love? What was that experience that brought you into the awareness that something had to change?
yeah. So for me, it was about having these crappy relationships and having a multitude of crappy relationships. It was like I'd get into one relationship, it wouldn't work out. And, I'd realize I was picking some pretty poor choices in partners, right? I was hungry for love, Mia. I was starving for love. I thought I would find that in, somebody. And when I would pick people, I wasn't too choosy, right? It was like, oh, they seem to like me, so here we go, right? And that really put me on a mission of self-love.
Beautiful. So we want a little more pain. No, I'm kidding.
You wanna go in there?
I'm gonna make you suffer. No, I'm kidding. The thing about relationships and discovering we want something different, I loved how you said they chose me, and I was like, oh, I had this conversation with a girlfriend just the other day about I would love it to be that she chooses someone and then
Yes.
that they choose her. And so, can you break down that a little bit? Because that is really a foundation of hidden worth, right? We can be really empowered, be on this. I mean, she's been on this journey a long time, um, be empowered and all of that, but it's like a blind spot.
Yes, absolutely. There's a process from going from like being the chosen to being the chooser, right? And I think it starts with clarity, like, well, what is it you really want? And sometimes if you've been like me and I was a people pleaser, didn't even know what I wanted, right? I was so busy making everybody else happy. I was being the nice girl. I wanted to make everybody else, feel good. And it didn't even occur to me that I should be looking in, right? So I think self-love is that big piece to becoming the chooser, because it's about now tapping into you and going, okay, I want somebody that's gonna make you like have these kind of feelings with me, or when I'm in their presence, I'm gonna feel loved or secure or seen or heard or adored. Like that didn't even occur to me, right? So I think when you start to like even get in the mindset of like, I am the chooser, like even repeating that to yourself, I am going to choose who I'm going to be in love with next, who I'm going to allow to stay in my life, right? Because sometimes, if you're a kind, sensitive person, maybe you're a bit of an empath, right? You think, you hear these things like, oh, well, you're a narcissist magnet, right? It's like you're a narcissist magnet. No, not necessarily. I think those narcissists try it on for size with other people too.
Mhm.
It's just they know how to like see it, observe it, realize it doesn't match their requirements, their needs, their wants in a relationship, and they move them along much faster,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, because a narcissist does not even know that he or she is a narcissist. Bottom line, point blank, let's call it what it is. That is not a known factor, is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we're putting all this blame on people and yelling at them. And 99.9% of the time, they're don't even know because people haven't mentioned it, or their narcissistic tendencies can also come from trauma rather than being a true narcissist, which would be a clinical term by a psychiatrist, right?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Because I think there's many more people that have narcissistic tendencies versus they are a true clinical narcissist.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's such an interesting conversation because my son called me a narcissist a couple years ago, and I'm like, I've been doing this work for a long time. We were talking, having an in-depth conversation. And so I looked at what he was talking about. And what I discovered was I was still using some of the programming that my mom taught me, right?
Really?
So that easily dropped because it's like, oh, that's definitely not me. That's kind of gross, And so rather than fighting or anything, I was like, wow, that's so interesting. And then I looked at it and I changed that behavior. And it's behavior I did with everybody, but definitely with my son. Why? Because I'm his mother, and sometimes there's control things going on, or look at me, right? That kind of thing. So it's an interesting, and that covers so many topics. So let's break that down. It's interesting in the sense that as a society lately, in the last several years, we've just been spewing narcissism. Narcissism does exist, and it also is a form, like we mentioned, of trauma, that we can pick up qualities and things that we've experienced through our life from somebody that had a huge impact on us, such as a parent. So not everyone is a narcissist, even though they have those capabilities. And you still don't want to be in a relationship with somebody who's not treating you right. So I didn't want to negate what you said, right? And so bringing it back around to that, beautiful. And so I love that can be part of someone's self-love awareness, is to identify themselves. Who am I? What am I? How do I interact with others? And my life has these tendencies that I keep hearing about all over social media or whatever. Then examine whether or not you particularly are in a relationship like that, or you're attracting those in. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things that I say when you're on the self-love journey is, you want to keep your vibration high, right? What the heck does that mean? Keep your energy high. And in order to do that, you want to take toxic people out of your life or fake people out of your life as much as you can, because sometimes there's a situation where maybe you have a toxic parent and you need to take care of them, or or you have to go visit or something. You don't have to do anything, but you're choosing to go see them. So, but I would still say minimize those relationships, and as much as you can, let go of toxic or fake people, right?
Yeah.
Get it out of your life. And sometimes people say to me, well, Gina, but I work at this toxic workplace. Like, what am I gonna do? I can't quit my job tomorrow, right? But even if you sort of take breaks, like maybe it means like at lunchtime, you go for a little walk and you break away from that low vibrational energy, that negative energy that you're sitting in. Because I think when you're in negative energy all the time, it eats away your self-love.
And also utilizing the tools that you use for self-love to grow yourself will change the energy about you, and it changes the energy about the people around you. Because those who understand that you've evolved or grown to a certain place don't want to be in that energy if they come from a toxic, space. Yeah. It's I'm going to say interesting again, so I'm going to change that. It's funny how over the years, like over the last since 2011, I've noticed that there are different terms that have been used. Energy vampires were way back then. Toxic people, narcissism, these things that people are like throwing out, and then everybody's like, am I a energy vampire? Am I? It's so funny. I was in Houston like a month or so ago with a girlfriend, and we were talking about energy, and I was saying how energy propels me as a person forward, because a lot of people say, how can you get so much done? And I'm, well, I live off of energy, and it's my own, but that's because I've created my group of people to be beautiful, energetic beings. So we got into the topic. I said, you know what really makes me nervous is once at a transformational course, it was really super hardcore that I would never do again because it was just too mean.
Yeah.
Leader called me an energy vampire. And that really threw me because I'm definitely not an energy vampire.
Definitely not.
And so it's like it sort of has stayed in the back of my mind, obviously, to this year that we're in now. That's what, 12 years ago that it stayed within me. So we need to clear out these name callings that people have done to us, identify them. Is that truly me? Do I like the behavior? Do I not like the behavior? What do I want to be? And then move forward. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, Mia, that really touches on a bit of like forgiveness or self-forgiveness. And I think that's a self-love tool, right? Where you need to say, yeah, maybe I didn't show up in the best place there, or maybe I could have done this differently. Or for me, I remember after spending, 7 years in a very toxic marriage and toxic relationship, I was mad at myself. I was mad, like, Gina, why did you waste all that time? What were you, and I'm just beating myself up emotionally, right? So it's sort of forgiving yourself for maybe staying too long in something you shouldn't have, or maybe you shouldn't have allowed someone to treat you a certain way, or maybe use certain language towards you, but just forgiving yourself that you did the very best in that moment at that time, and looking for the nugget of the lesson, because I believe the true way out of forgiveness is saying to yourself, like, what did I learn from that?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
Then you get it, that it didn't happen to you, but for you.
Right. As you said that, I was thinking, and this is how I would respond to anyone that has said that, oh, look at it in a different light, such as look where you are today, or you weren't able to remove yourself from that space. So don't condemn yourself. Now that you know, rejoice in what you learned as you move along, right? Because we don't know what we don't know until we know it, which is my favorite thing to say, apparently, besides hurt people hurt people. So if we don't know, we can't beat ourselves up the moment we identify that. And if you do, it's okay, because we have to go through all the cycles of anger and grief and everything to get back to the place of love. Some people say, well, why do we have to do that? You don't necessarily have to go through all of them, but if they come up, allow that to be how it is. Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
What a beautiful conversation that was. Yeah, thank you, honey. Will you share with us what your top three, and you can give some more if you're like, I can't just do three. Top
Sure.
favorite self-love tools.
Yeah, so my first favorite self-love tool, everybody has access to. And if you don't, you can go out and buy one for $2, right? $2. And this $2 investment is the best investment you will make in your life. And that is getting yourself a little mirror. I know there's people listening right now or watching that are shuddering at the idea of like using a mirror, right?
I love mirror work and
right? Because we use mirrors as sometimes it's like a self-hate tool. It's terrible, right? We're like, look in there, and especially when we got the full-length mirror, we're like, oh, my thighs are too big, my belly's too round, right? We can just beat ourselves up. But I want you to use the mirror as a loving tool, right? And so what I see is doing like eye gazing in the mirror, like soft, gentle eye gazing. And you may have heard this before. And if you haven't, It's the saying of the eyes are the windows to the soul,
Mhm.
right? The eyes are the windows to the soul. So if we're like gently like looking into our mirror, gazing gently into our eyes, just sort of see what comes up for you. What do you see in your eyes? What is your soul telling you? What's your innermost being telling you, right? What do you need to hear, right? Sometimes you'll look in your eyes and you might see pain. You could see pain, you can see suffering, you can see, but there's a message that might come up, and maybe not. Maybe you'll have a very happy message that you'll see in your eyes. But whatever it is, I just want you to be gentle with yourself and be an observer. Be an observer, right?
Mhm.
And then I want you to ask yourself, why am I lovable? I do the lovable summit, right?
Love it.
Why am I worthy of love? And let that come out. Looking into your eyes, looking into the windows of your soul, ask yourself that. And stuff's going to pop for you. You might go, well, I'm a really nice person, or I'm very caring, or I'm a very gentle person. I love gardening. Pets love me, right? Like, why are you worthy of love? And allow that to come out, because that's what's sitting in there that needs to come out. Now, sometimes, you're not going to be able to help it. Some negative stuff's going to pop up for you too, right? And that's where your work needs to begin, right? Because it's not right. Right? So
Absolutely.
yeah, so when you have that negative stuff up, that's stuff that you're going to want to work around and start to develop affirmations around that counteract some of the negativity that you are seeing. Now, one of the things I want to just note here is sometimes when it comes to affirmations, people try to lift the 300-pound weights right away, right?
Mhm.
So if you look in the mirror and you say, I'm not worthy of love, like let's say that comes up for you, right? Don't start saying to yourself, I am lovable, I am lovable, like, because it's too far away from where you're at. So you're going to want to pick something that maybe is sort of like halfway or part way. Like if you hear I'm not lovable, you might say, but I'm a super kind person, right? So allow it to gently. So, if you start doing affirmations, it might be not on day one that you can turn around to yourself and say, I am lovable, right? Gina's lovable, but you can work your way. And then maybe on day 10, it will feel more natural.
Mhm.
So I think it's that the mirror work is really important.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
What's your next one?
So next one, and this is one that blew my mind, right? And most of us don't get lucky enough to be born into a loving, caring family, right? I would say most of us have some dysfunction that went on, some crazies, some, toxic environment. You know what I'm talking about, right, Mia?
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I used to think of this and I used to think, well, I'm doomed. I had all this crappy shit go off. Hopefully I can swear on this crap that went off in my childhood. And now this is my lot. I'm stuck with this, right? And I really think it's about reparenting yourself. So I would say my second tool is reparenting yourself. And when I realized I could do this, I was like, what? Right? Because, even in my case, both my parents are deceased, but even if your parent is still alive, generally they probably haven't evolved enough. Maybe you're lucky and they have, that you could come to them and then express yourself and they'd be able to come back and say, and lighten up the situation or empower you at that point. But generally that doesn't happen, right? Because they are who they are. And if they haven't evolved, you're going to get more of the same, even if you address this issue, right?
Mhm.
But you can talk to yourself like a parent. You can talk to yourself. And so maybe you're going to pull that mirror out again, right? Or you just can say it out loud. So, you're going to think, what were some of the things that they maybe said to you that weren't great? Or what were the things they didn't say? Because sometimes it's what people don't say to you. Like, I was never, ever, ever told, oh, Gina, we're proud of you. Right. Didn't matter what I did. I remember my mom, like, I come home with an A on my report card, look, mom, and she'd look at it and she'd say, oh, well, that's for yourself. Right. It's like, right. So talk to your inner child, right? Talk to your inner child like you are the parent. Right. So I literally talk to myself. I'll say, little Gina, right? I'll say, little Gina, I am so proud of you. Right. Because I didn't hear that. So I need to hear that.
It's beautiful.
So
Yeah. I love
yeah,
reparenting.
yeah, just reparenting this old programming and knowing that you can kind of change what happened in your childhood by speaking to your inner child, by speaking to your little self that never got told the words that they needed to hear. Yeah.
I love that. We're going to break these down in a minute, but what's number 3?
So number 3 is
You've already broken them down, but jump in, but I want you to be able to say them all. Yeah.
That's okay, Willow. It's really about keeping an energy journal, and we kind of talked about that a little bit. But I want you to keep an energy journal. So, you know, when we talked about keeping your vibration high, we want to talk about, like, how can we empower ourselves? How can we keep our energy high? So in your energy journal, you're going to write things down that, you know, bring you joy, right? What are you doing to bring yourself joy in that day? You know, what are the things that you're doing? So maybe it would be like you meditated today, and that sort of raises your vibration. That's really great, right? Or maybe you walked in nature, right? This is all about what's bringing my energy up. What's bringing my energy up? You might say, well, I ate some really, you know, high vibrational foods, right? Maybe I had a big salad and all this type of stuff, and so that could go into your energy journal. It's going to be writing down your wins in your energy journal. So it doesn't have to be a big thing. Doesn't mean that you had to get a job offer, right? It could be something small, like today I was able to tackle my closet and clear out my clutter, right? So it's really observing what's bringing your energy up, and that becomes the focus.
It's beautiful. Well, let's go back to the beginning and come really, this was really lovely. Our work is very similar. I didn't realize how similar it is. It's different. So the mirror work, I'm really glad that you brought that up. The way you address mirror work is different than the way I address it, big time. And it's beautiful because I'm sort of a commander, I guess. Like, you have to say I love you in the mirror every day, and then journal what your response is, you know. And that can be frightening, although it's different, like you said. If somebody can't, then we use a small mirror. So having that mirror, you can get it from the dollar store, you can get it from Amazon. It doesn't matter. I love the fact that you talked about a $2 mirror, because I wrote down $200 mirror. and that has all the good stuff talking to you. That's funny. I wrote in the notes $200. I love
well, you
that.
deserve a $200 mirror, Mia.
That's right. That's exactly. And what would that look like? I love the gentleness, because again, when we go to step 2, the reparenting yourself, you have to be gentle. We're giving ourselves what we were not given. And that is beautiful. And so whether you're working with, so the inner child and parts work are sisters or cousins or twins, however you want to say it, best friends, they work together. And so whether you're doing that in your inner child work, or whether you do it in your parts work, such as you're feeling an emotion that you recognize from when you were younger, that would be parts work that you would take care of. And it's profound, because the conversation of how you speak to yourself changes. The beauty. I remember when I went from calling everybody else sweet names to calling myself a sweet name, when it first happened, or when I first heard I love you, just walking down the hallway in my house. And I'm like, wait a minute, who said that? You know, it's like, what are you doing? Are you cracking up? And no, it's that gentleness, that sweetness. That's beautiful. So I'm so glad you do that. That's just, reparenting is profound. It's
It is.
profound. Literally, it's one of my favorite ways to connect to self, because I didn't get what I didn't get, and I'm going to give myself what I need. And
Yeah,
people to look at that, right, Gina, in that context is, again, remarkable, because people don't treat themselves with love.
exactly. Yeah.
Really
And
beautiful.
to me, it's really about like, it's almost like a time machine, right? Like Back to the Future, like, that type of thing, because you obviously can't go back in time in physical, but you can emotional.
Yes, right, right. And that's where the healing comes in.
Yes.
Yes. It's
Yeah.
writing your story, literally. When
It
you
literally
go
is.
back and not lie, it's not a lie to say, oh, that never happened. That's more destructive to yourself than going back in as, like you're saying, as the inner child, and saying, it's okay, honey. It's okay. You did
Mhm.
good. When we work with our inner child in like a meditative process or something,
Mhm.
it's remarkable the shifts and changes that happen within us. And so, bravo, thank you for doing that. And number 3, okay, this is a new one for me. Shocking after 15 years of teaching. Thank you. I love this. Okay. So I love the energy journal. It's a gratitude, a manifesting, everything in one. It's the most beautiful thing. It brings tears to my eyes, because literally it's really beautiful. I don't journal very much, although I promote it. I I'm the type of person that's able to talk through myself, like it's almost like a journaling at the time, except for it's not recorded anywhere except for through me. And
Yeah.
so what happens with that is sometimes we forget, right? So the journal's the good part, because we pull it out and say, now what's going on with us? Why am I not myself today? Let me go through my journal and see why I am not congruent. And so I do an energy check-in on myself. I'm very selfish with energy, and I ask myself, how can I raise my vibration? How can I raise the level of my happiness? What am I going to do for myself today? And I love the journal part, because I'm in Miami right now and have been here for about 2 months, and I'm heading back to the island in Washington for the summer. And um, when I'm in Miami, I live differently than I do in Washington.
Yeah.
It's just different. I have a bigger place. I have my dog there. I have my husband in Miami. It's just different. So I love the fact of the energy journal, because that is where we can check in on the spaces that we have left behind. You know,
Yeah.
I still check in with myself, but I can't do what I can do when I'm by myself. Why? Because I didn't write it down in my journal to
Excellent.
keep reminding myself. Yeah.
Yeah. And I really think one of the important things about the energy journal too is that it shows you, you're on a journey with self-love, right? It's a journey. So when you flip back the pages and you see what you wrote 4 months ago, it's like, wow, I have super grown. Like,
Yeah.
look what I'm writing in these pages. And my first 3 days were like that.
Yeah. That's what's beautiful about journaling, right? Literally, it is. In the early days, I did journal a lot. And so it's just so interesting, because it's something that I do promote. I think it's as beautiful as meditation, and it can become meditational, right? It can become a smooth thought path for our mind to just relax into ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And it
More
allows
time with
you,
self.
yeah, and it allows you just to get out what's in, right? So it's not
Yeah.
stuck in you. It's allowing the energy to move out.
Awesome. Thank you. So
Yeah.
we're at the end here.
Yes.
To share your free gift.
Yes, absolutely. So that's the 3-part find your soulmate, or soulmate checklist. That is my free gift. So anybody who's single, who wants to find out, what are the red flags that you should be looking for, and it's sort of broken down in 3 parts. There's the hot red flags, like run, 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 right? If you have see these things. Then there's the things that are more subtle. Well, these are the ones that we can sometimes miss, or not notice, or maybe we put our blinders on a little bit because we think, oh, that's not anything big. And then the 3rd part, and I really even think, even if you're in a relationship right now, might be worth getting this list just to look at the 3rd part.
That's
And
what I was going to say.
yeah, that's our red flags. What are our red flags we bring to relationships?
I think that this is a beautiful gift for everyone, and here's why. Because if you are in a relationship, I am a believer now, because I've shifted mine with my husband, that you can create a happy, joy-filled, soulful relationship or soulmate relationship with your partner. Now, some partners aren't willing to adjust and to work. And so to look at even the red flags, there are people that you and I work with that don't even know that there's red flags in their current existence, right? So I like that you have the different levels of the red flags, because it's awareness. When we have awareness, so awareness is key, as they say. And when we have awareness, we have everything. So that's really beautiful. So
Absolutely.
that. That's lovely. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for today.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. It was really lovely.
Yeah.
And thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you in another episode.
Bye, everyone.